The 6th annual 11 Global Africa's Toughest Triathlon taking place at Sun City this weekend, and day one's action saw the sprint triathlon, a 750-meter swim, 20-kilometer bike and a 5.5-kilometer run take to the course, and it was a fantastic day out. Athletes of all ages represented, some great athletes as well, and this was some of the action that took place.
As the sun peeked its way over the edge of the volcanic crater that forms the dramatic background for Africa's toughest triathlon, the scene was set for yet another fantastic day's racing at Sun City. Near-perfect conditions greeted the 100-plus competitors that would take to the course for the opening race of the weekend. Nervous energy was abound as the elite and novices alike made their final adjustments to their equipment and prepared themselves for what was going to be another hot day under the African skies. As the field readied themselves at the water's edge for the start of the race, a slight breeze picked up which provided a little relief from the baking sun. With the race underway, the spectators who had gathered on the banks of the Crystal Lake watched eagerly to see who would be the first to exit the water. Early on, it was clear that it would be a two-horse race, with Wikus Weber and Glenn Gore breaking away at the front of the field. As the first of the athletes made their way out of the water, it was Gore who had a slight advantage over Weber heading into T1. It wasn't long before the First Lady emerged from the water, closely followed by one of the inspirational para-athletes taking part, Oswald Kidd. The age groupers streamed in and out of transition and made their way to the mount line. The testing 20-kilometer cycle course took the competitors out of the Sun City Resort complex and onto the road to Johannesburg. A fast downhill start to the bike course ensured that coming back was not going to be easy. Push too hard early on and you would pay for it later in the day. A sting in the tail awaited the athletes as they made their way back into the resort, which meant there was no relaxing heading into T2. With temperatures rising, a hot and muggy 5.5-kilometer run was next on the cards for the field. The run course, which traversed the magnificent Gary Player Country Club, was the final test of this sprint triathlon. At the sharp end of the race, it was Wikus Weber and Glenn Gore who were slugging it out for race honours. And despite fighting a gastric bug, it was the Gauteng-based youngster who managed to break the tape first with only a 4-second advantage over Gore. The first of the elite juniors home was Jared Brown, while the ladies' race was won by Nikki Barnard, who was closely followed by Samantha Summerscales. The 11 Global at Sun City provides a wonderful weekend getaway for the entire family, and the next few races on the cards were for the kids. 100 of Africa's toughest juniors took part in what turned out to be a brilliant introduction to the sport of triathlon for many of the children taking part. The first of the 3 kids races saw the 6 to 8-year-olds take to the water, followed by the 9 to 11-year-olds, and the last juniors were between the age of 12 and 15.
It's my favorite sport. I've been doing it since I was in the 9 to 11, since I was 11. And yeah, I really love the sport. It's like my favorite sport. So I think one day I want to do it like at the Olympics or something.
There were many nervous parents watching, but there were no signs of nerves from the children, who seemed to have a fabulous time out on the course in the blistering sun. The final event of day one of the 11 Global Weekend was a fun run for a group of children from the area surrounding the Sun City Resort, who were bussed in to experience the sport of triathlon for the very first time.
Day two of Africa's toughest triathlon. It is 11 Global here at Sun City, and it is the Olympic distance taking place today. Over 600 athletes taking to this 1.5 kilometer swim course, 40 kilometer bike and 10K run. 60 of those athletes took part yesterday in the 11 double, and it's going to be a great day's racing.
Much like day one, day two also promised to be a scorcher as the sun made its way over the Sun City Resort, and with temperatures rising to 39 degrees on Saturday, the competitors for Sunday's race knew they were in for a hard day's racing. Looking at the packed transition area on the beautiful lawns of the Cabanas Hotel, it was clear that the 2013 edition of 11 Global Sun City was the biggest yet. And as the final preparations were made, bikes racked and gear checked, it was off to the waterfront for the final race briefing before setting the field on their way. As the first wave set off, it was once again Wikus Wieber and Glenn Gore who put time into the rest of the field, but this time around it was Wieber who was out of the water first. One of the favourites for the race, Gerard de Bruin, was 6th out of the water, a minute and a half back. In the ladies' race, Michelle Vlasakova had a strong swim and exited with the leading men, ahead of Catherine Dubesson and Sam Harrington. With the elites out of the water and on the bike course, the start waves kept coming as the 600-plus field began their journey to complete Africa's toughest triathlon.
Yeah, it was a pretty tough race. I must say it felt better than yesterday. Yesterday was terrible. I was so nervous waking up this morning. My body was so dehydrated from being ill yesterday. But then the race went pretty well. Once again, I took the swim pretty easy. I sat on Glenn's feet, and halfway through the swim I felt pretty strong. Got in next to him. And then on the bike it was just all about maintaining. I knew with the heat and this very hard run course, I knew the run was going to be a very important factor. So I just made sure I got some energy in my legs for the run, and yeah, I managed to pull it off.
Safely out of the water, the stream of age groupers made their way from T1 onto the challenging 2-lap 40-kilometer bike course. The nasty hill that ended off Saturday's sprint race needed to be summited twice today, and it allowed the strongest cyclists to make up time ahead of the very challenging 10-kilometer run. As expected, Gerard de Bruin made his move on the bike and slowly moved from 6th all the way into 1st place, overtaking Wikus Wieber, who was still in the lead on the 11 squared. De Bruin smashed the 40-kilometer bike in 60 minutes and 54 seconds to head into T2 first. Wikus Wieber was close on his heels, and it was going to come down to who could keep their nerve on the undulating run course.
Yeah, I knew Gerard, he's known for a bit of a weaker swimmer, but he's an awesome biker, and I think he knew that if he wanted to take it, he had to catch me on the bike and put up a bit of a gap, and that's exactly what he did. He really went out hard on the bike, and once he caught me, I just used him as like a target just to stick quite close to him. I knew even if he made 2 minutes on me on the bike, my running was I was pretty confident in my running, and I knew I'd catch him. And then it was only like a 30-second gap or so, and I caught him early on the run, and then from there it was just ticking over.
The first part of the run is very testing and takes the athletes up towards the Palace of the Lost City. With the early climb behind them, the Gary Player Country Club was beckoning for the remainder of the run. With the mercury once again inching up to the 40°C mark, the run was brutal, and it was Wikus Weber who handled the conditions the best. The youngster regained the lead once again as more and more of the age groupers returned from their 40-kilometer cycle. Just as he had on day one in the sprint triathlon, once he was back in the lead, he never relinquished it, and Wikus Weber broke the tape to claim the 11 Global Sun City 2013 title. Despite the almost superhuman performance on the bike, Gerard de Bruin was able to hang on for second, and he was closely followed by Jaren Seegers. At the front of the ladies' race, it was recently married Samantha Harrington who took the line honours with a very solid performance. Catherine Dubesson finished 5 minutes further back, with Michelle Vlasakova completing the podium.
The swim wasn't ideal. I was, I think, 2 minutes back on the swim, so I had a really good bike to make up time past the second and third place girl. And yeah, I managed to come in first after the bike and then just held it on the run. I just went out and just said, well, as long as I pace myself, yeah, I'll get there.
With the elite race decided, the focus was shifted on getting the age groupers home. There were smiles and grimaces galore, but in the end the race once again lived up to its reputation as one of the toughest around.
And that is a wrap for the 2013 edition of 11 Global. What a weekend of racing. The sprint taking place on Saturday, Wikus Weber winning that one and then claiming victory in the standard distance on Sunday. It was phenomenally hot out here, and what a great performance from the young man. And then in the 11 squared as well, it was Samantha Summerscales taking victory. She was awesome throughout the whole weekend, and Samantha Harrington getting back from just getting married 2 weeks ago from honeymoon, coming back racing and cleaning up in the ladies race as well. Lots of age groupers taking part, some great inspiring stories as well. We look forward to welcoming you back to Sun City in 2014, but before then, join us in Cape Town for Global 11 Cape Town.